The alarm bells rang through station harmony at exactly 3 in the morning. Hyun woke up fast, his heart beating hard in his chest. He worked as a scientist on the space station, studying alien animals and creatures. Most days were quiet and boring. But today was different. He put on his white lab coat and ran down the metal hallways. Other workers were running too, all heading to the main docking bay. Something important was happening. When Hyun reached the bay, he saw a large ship. It was black and gold, with scales painted on its surface. He knew that ship. It belonged to the Draken people. The Draken were famous across the galaxy. They looked like dragons from old Earth stories. They had wings, scales, and could breathe fire. They were strong warriors who had conquered many worlds. Most species were afraid of them. The Draken rarely asked anyone for help. They were too proud. But today, something was wrong. Very wrong. The ship's door opened slowly. A tall Draken walked out. His name was Velkir. He was an ambassador, someone important who spoke for his people. His scales were deep red like rubies. His eyes were golden and bright. But today those eyes looked sad and desperate. Velkir carried something in his arms. It was wrapped in a silver blanket. Hyun could see small movements under the cloth. Whatever it was alive. Barely. "Please," Velkir said. His voice was deep and rough. "Someone help us. My son is dying." The crowd of workers and aliens went silent. A Draken asking for help? This never happened. Velkir pulled back the blanket. Inside was a small dragon hatchling. The baby was the size of a human child. His scales were supposed to be bright blue, but they looked gray and sick. Red marks covered his body like someone had painted him with blood. His breathing was weak and slow. "Crimson blight," someone whispered. Hyun knew that name. It was a disease that killed young Draken. No one knew how to cure it. For hundreds of years, the Draken had watched their children die from this sickness. Their best doctors could not stop it. Their advanced technology could not fix it. The station's medical officer, Mirai, stepped forward. She was a human woman with short black hair and kind eyes. She looked at the dying hatchling with sadness. "I am sorry," she said softly. "We do not have medicine for Draken biology. Our equipment is not made for your species." Other aliens in the crowd shook their heads. The Quellan, who looked like tall blue flowers, said their healing light would not work on reptilian species. The Mektar, robots made of living metal, said their nanomachines were incompatible with organic dragon tissue. One by one, every species gave the same answer. No one could help. Velkir's shoulders fell. His wings drooped. "Then my son will die here," he said quietly, like so many others before him. The little hatchling made a weak sound. It was like a kitten's cry mixed with a bird's chirp. The sound went straight to Hyun's heart. He had heard that sound before in his research. It was a distress call. The baby was asking for help in the only way he could. Hyun pushed through the crowd. He did not think about it. He just moved. "Wait," he called out. "Let me look at him." Velkir turned. His golden eyes met Hyun's brown ones. "You are human," Velkir said. It was not a question. It sounded like disappointment. Everyone knew humans were new to space travel. They had simple technology compared to other species. They were considered weak and primitive. "Yes," Hyun said, "but I study xenobiology. I study diseases in alien creatures. Please, just let me examine him." Mirai grabbed Hyun's arm. "Do not do this," she whispered. "If you fail, it could cause problems for all humans. The Draken might blame us. This is not our fight." Hyun looked at the dying baby dragon. The hatchling's eyes were barely open. They were cloudy and unfocused. "He is just a child," Hyun said. "I have to try." Velkir studied Hyun's face for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "You may try, human, but know this. If my son dies while you treat him, I will not blame you. You are showing more courage than species with far greater power." Hyun took the hatchling carefully. The baby was surprisingly light. His bones felt hollow like a bird's. His scales were rough and dry instead of smooth and shiny. His body was too hot. Fever. The red marks on his skin were raised and hard, like scabs that would not heal. They moved to the medical bay. It was a large room with white walls and bright lights. Machines beeped and hummed. Hyun laid the hatchling on an examination table. The baby whimpered again. Hyun gently touched his head. "Shh," he said softly. "I will try to help you." He scanned the hatchling with every machine in the room. The results appeared on screens around him. Numbers and graphs showed the baby's failing body. His organs were shutting down. His blood was full of strange crystals that should not be there. The crimson blight was spreading fast. Hyun studied the data carefully. Something looked familiar. The way the disease attacked cells, the crystal formations in the blood, the pattern of organ failure. He had seen something similar before, back on Earth. It was an old disease that almost wiped out humanity thousands of years ago. Medicine had defeated it, but the knowledge was ancient now. Most modern doctors did not even study it anymore. His hands shook as he typed on the computer. Could it be possible? Could a human disease from Earth's past be similar to a dragon disease from another world? It seemed crazy. But life in the universe followed certain patterns. DNA was similar across many species. Diseases often work the same way. "What did you find?" Mirai asked. She stood beside him, watching the screens. "Maybe nothing," Hyun said. "Maybe everything. I need to try something." He looked at Velkir, who stood in the corner like a statue. The proud dragon warrior looked small now, just a worried father. "I think I can help him," Hyun said. "But my method will seem strange to you. It is old human medicine. Very simple, very basic, not advanced like Draken technology." "I do not care if you use rocks and dirt," Velkir said, his voice cracked. "Just save my son. Please." Hyun nodded. He turned to his work. Around him, other aliens had gathered to watch. They whispered among themselves. Some laughed quietly. Humans and their primitive medicine. This would never work. The poor hatchling was doomed, but Hyun did not listen to them. He focused on the small dragon on his table. The baby's breathing was getting weaker. There was no time to waste. He had one chance. One impossible, crazy chance. He began to work. Hyun worked through the night without stopping. His fingers moved quickly across the computer keyboard. Mirai helped him, bringing supplies and monitoring the machines. The little hatchling lay on the table, barely breathing. His scales had turned almost completely gray now. "We need to make a treatment," Hyun said. "The crimson blight works like an infection I studied from old Earth history. It attacks the blood cells and creates crystal formations. If we can stop the crystals and help his immune system fight back, he might survive." Mirai looked worried. "Human antibiotics will not work on Draken biology. Their cells are completely different from ours." "I know," Hyun said. "That is why we need to modify them. We will use nanites to deliver the medicine directly into his cells." Another doctor, a Quellan named Petals in Wind, laughed from the doorway. "Nanites? You humans barely understand that technology. The Draken have used medical nanites for centuries. If they could not cure this disease, how can you?" Hyun did not answer. He kept working. He knew what others thought. Humans were the newcomers in the galaxy. They had only been traveling in space for 200 years. Other species had thousands or millions of years of advancement. Human technology was considered toys compared to alien science. But Hyun had learned something in his studies. Sometimes the old ways worked better than new ones. Sometimes simple was stronger than complicated. He prepared the medicine. It was a mixture of 3 old human antibiotics that doctors had not used in hundreds of years. Modern medicine had replaced them with better drugs. But these old drugs had one advantage. They were simple. They worked with the body instead of forcing it to change. "This will not work," said a Mektar doctor watching from the corner. His metallic body hummed with processing power. "You are using primitive compounds. The molecular structure is too basic to affect advanced biological systems." Velkir stood up. His eyes flashed with anger. Let him work, the dragon father growled. No one else offered to help. If the human fails, at least he tried. That is more than any of you did. The room went quiet. Velker's words stung because they were true. All these advanced species with their powerful technology had done nothing but watch and wait for death. Hyun injected the medicine into the hatchling's arm. The baby did not even flinch. He was too weak to feel pain now. The monitors showed his heart beating slower and slower. They were running out of time. Now we wait, Hyun said. But he did not wait. He started preparing a second treatment. This one was different. It used human stem cells. Are you crazy? Mirai asked. Human cells in a draken body? That could kill him faster. Or it could save him, Hyun said. His grandmother's face appeared in his mind. She had been a traditional Korean doctor, using old remedies made from herbs and natural ingredients. She had taught him an important lesson. The body knows how to heal itself. Medicine should help the body, not replace it. That was the problem with modern galactic medicine. It was too strong. It forced the body to change. It did not work with nature. It fought against it. Hyun modified the stem cells carefully. He programmed them to support the hatchling's immune system, not replace it. They would be helpers, not invaders. He injected the second treatment. Then he stepped back and watched the monitors. The numbers did not change. The hatchling's breathing stayed weak. His heart kept slowing down. An hour passed. Nothing happened. 2 hours. Still nothing. Velker sat down heavily. His big body seemed to collapse. He is gone, the dragon father whispered. My son is gone. No, Hyun said firmly. Look at his scales. Everyone stared at the hatchling. The gray scales on his chest were changing. Just slightly. A tiny bit of color was returning. The monitors beeped. The heart rate increased by 1 beat per minute, just one, but it was an increase, not a decrease. It is working, Mirai breathed. I do not believe it, but it is working. The next few hours were the longest of Hyun's life. The improvements came slowly. The hatchling's temperature dropped 1 degree, then half a degree more. The red marks on his skin started to fade from bright crimson to pink. His breathing got a little stronger, but there were problems too. Sometimes his heart would skip beats. Sometimes his breathing would stop for a few seconds. Each time Hyun would adjust the treatment. Less medicine here, more support there. He listened to what the body was telling him through the machines. More alien doctors arrived to watch. They stood in groups, whispering and pointing at the screens. Some still said it would fail. Others started to look interested. A few even started taking notes. By morning, the hatchling's eyes opened. They were still cloudy, but they could focus now. The little dragon looked at Hyun and made a soft chirping sound. It was different from the distress call. This sound was curious, questioning. Hello, little one, Hyun said softly. He touched the hatchling's head gently. The scales felt warmer now, more alive. You are going to be okay. Velker rushed to the table. Tears ran down his scaled face. Draken rarely cried, but this was his child. His only son. You saved him, Velker said. His voice was thick with emotion. You actually saved him. The monitors showed steady improvement now. The crystals in the blood were dissolving. The organs were starting to function normally again. The crimson blight was retreating. Petals in wind, the Quellan doctor who had laughed before stepped closer. How did you do this? Your methods should not have worked. The mathematical probability was nearly 0. Hyun wiped sweat from his forehead. He had not slept in over 24 hours. I used old medicine, he said. Simple treatments that work with the body's natural healing. I did not try to force the cure. I helped his body cure itself. Impossible, said the Mektar doctor, but he was recording everything with his sensors. Advanced medicine requires precision programming, complex molecular restructuring, forced cellular modification. What you did was too simple, too primitive. Maybe that was the point, Mirai said quietly. She looked at Hyun with new respect. Maybe we forgot how to let the body heal itself. We became so focused on complex solutions that we missed the simple ones. Over the next 3 days, the hatchling continued to improve. His scales turned bright blue, the color they were supposed to be. His wings, which had been limp and lifeless, started to move and flutter. He began to eat small pieces of meat that Velker brought from the ship. The little dragon also began to bond with Hyun. Whenever Hyun entered the room, the hatchling would chirp happily and reach for him with small clawed hands. This was strange. Draken hatchlings usually only bonded with their parents. He knows you saved him, Velker explained. Dragons remember. We never forget those who show us kindness. Hyun picked up the small dragon carefully. The hatchling nuzzled against his chest, making content purring sounds. He needs a name, Hyun said. Velker nodded. You saved his life. You should name him. Hyun thought for a moment. He remembered his grandmother again. She always said that a good heart was worth more than all the gold in the world. Daishim, he said. It means great heart in Korean. He fought hard to live. He has a strong heart. Daishim, Velker repeated. The name sounded good in his deep voice. It is perfect. News of the miracle spread through the station fast. Then it spread through the galaxy even faster. The impossible had happened. A human had cured the Crimson Blight. A disease that had killed Draken children for centuries was defeated by primitive human medicine. Scientists from every species wanted to study what Hyun had done. Reporters wanted interviews. Government officials wanted meetings. Suddenly, humanity was not a joke anymore. They were interesting, important, valuable. But Hyun only cared about one thing. Little Daishim was getting stronger every day. The baby dragon who had been hours from death was now playing and learning to fly. That was the only success Hyun needed. Everything was about to change. 2 weeks after saving Daishim, Hyun's life became chaos. His small quarters on the station were filled with messages from across the galaxy. Scientists wanted his research data. Medical schools wanted him to teach. News organizations wanted interviews. He ignored most of them. He was too busy taking care of Daishim. The little dragon had recovered completely. His scales were bright blue and shiny. His wings were strong enough to fly short distances. He followed Hyun everywhere, chirping and playing like any young child. The bond between them had grown stronger every day. But something strange was happening. Something no one expected. Mireille ran into the medical bay one morning with a tablet computer. Her eyes were wide with excitement. Hyun, you need to see this, she said. We ran more tests on Daishim's blood. Look at these results, Hyun studied the screen. His mouth dropped open. This cannot be right. I checked 3 times, Mireille said. It is right. Daishim's immune system has changed. It is not purely Draken anymore. Your stem cell treatment did more than help him heal. It integrated with his biology. What does that mean? Velker asked. He was always nearby watching over his son. Yoon scrolled through the data. It means Daishim has hybrid antibodies now. Part human, part Draken. His body created something completely new when it fought off the disease. A Quellan scientist named Blossom at Dawn pushed into the room. She had been studying Hyun's methods for days. Do you understand what this means? She asked. This child is immune to diseases that affect both humans and Draken. The combination created a stronger immune system than either species has naturally. The news spread fast. Within hours, the Galactic Medical Council arrived at the station. They were a group of the best doctors and scientists from dozens of species. They wanted to examine Daishim and interview Hyun. The lead counselor was a tall Mektar named Forge of Light. His metal body gleamed under the station's lights. Explain your process, he demanded. How did you know to use human stem cells with primitive antibiotics? What calculations did you use? What formulas? Hyun felt uncomfortable with so many important people watching him. I did not use complicated formulas, he said honestly. I just thought about how my grandmother treated illnesses. She believed in helping the body heal itself. She used simple remedies, not complex medicines. Forge of Light's optical sensors flashed with confusion. Your grandmother? An ancient human with no advanced training? That is your source? She was wise, Hyun said firmly. She understood something that modern medicine forgot. The body is not a machine you can reprogram. It is a living system that needs support, not replacement. Another counselor, a floating energy being named Whisper of Stars, spoke in a melodic voice. For 10,000 years we have pursued complexity in medicine. We believed more advanced meant better, but this human used basic compounds and supportive therapy. It should not have worked. Yet it did. Blossom at Dawn added her own analysis. I have been studying human medical history. Do you know what I found? Humans evolved on a death world. Earth was one of the most hostile planets for developing life. Diseases, predators, extreme weather, natural disasters. Humans should have died out millions of years ago. But we adapted, Mireille said quietly. We learned to survive anything. Our medicine reflects that. We work with nature because we had to. We could not overpower it. The council members looked at each other. This was a revelation. They had dismissed human medicine as primitive because it was simple. They never considered that simplicity might be its strength. Over the next month, Hyun worked with the Galactic Medical Council. They studied his methods carefully. They discovered something amazing. Human adaptive medicine could treat dozens of diseases that advanced species thought were incurable. The key was not forcing change. It was supporting natural healing. But the biggest news came from the Draken homeworld. Valkyr received a message from the Dragon Council, the rulers of his species. They wanted Hyun to come to their planet. Thousands of Draken children were dying from crimson blight. They needed his help. This is a great honor, Valkyr explained. No outsider has ever been invited to our homeworld. We are a proud species. We do not trust others easily. But you saved my son. The council believes you can save more. Hyun felt nervous. I am just one person. I cannot treat thousands of children by myself. You do not have to, Valkyr said. You will teach our doctors your methods. They will learn from you. Mirai pulled Hyun aside. This is bigger than medicine, she whispered. This is politics. If you succeed, humanity's status in the galaxy will change forever. Other species will see us as valuable partners, not primitive newcomers. And if I fail? Hyun asked. Then we go back to being ignored, she said. But I do not think you will fail. You did the impossible once. You can do it again. 3 days later, Hyun stood on a transport ship heading to the Draken homeworld. Valkyr and Daishim traveled with him. The little dragon sat on Hyun's lap, playing with a small toy. He was completely healthy now, full of energy and curiosity. Through the ship's windows, Hyun saw the Draken homeworld appear. It was a beautiful planet of red mountains and golden deserts. Cities made of crystal and metal covered the surface. This was the heart of an empire that controlled hundreds of star systems. The ship landed in the capital city. When the doors opened, Hyun saw something that took his breath away. Thousands of Draken filled the streets. They were all watching him, waiting. A group of elderly dragons approached. They wore robes decorated with gems and gold. These were the Dragon Council, the leaders of the entire species. The oldest one, a dragon with silver scales, bowed his head slightly. Welcome, Hyun of Earth, the elder said. I am Taekwon, first of the council. We have waited centuries for someone who could help us. We never imagined that help would come from the youngest spacefaring species. Hyun bowed back, trying to be respectful. I will do everything I can. Taekwon led him through the city. They walked past buildings that touched the clouds. They passed gardens filled with plants that glowed in the sunlight. Everything was beautiful and advanced, but underneath the beauty, Hyun could feel sadness. They reached a massive hospital. Inside, Hyun saw hundreds of beds. In each bed was a young Draken suffering from crimson blight. Some were hatchlings like Daishim had been. Others were older children. All of them had the same gray scales and red marks. All of them were dying. Parents sat beside the beds holding their children's hands. Some were crying. Others just stared at nothing, their hope already gone. The sight broke Hyun's heart. This is just one hospital, Taekwon said quietly. We have 50 more like it across the planet. Crimson blight has killed 30% of our children for the last 500 years. Our greatest scientist cannot stop it. Our most powerful technology is useless against it. A young doctor approached. Her name was Jiwon. She had studied Hyun's treatment of Daishim. I have tried to replicate your methods, she said. But I fail every time. I do not understand what I am doing wrong. Hyun looked at the data she showed him. He saw the problem immediately. You are using too much medicine, he said. You are trying to force the cure. That is what advanced medicine always does. But with crimson blight, force does not work. You have to be gentle. You have to listen to what the body needs. Jiwon looked confused. Listen, how do you listen to a body? Let me show you, Hyun said. He spent the next week working with Jiwon and other Draken doctors. He taught them his methods step by step. At first, they struggled. They were used to complex treatments and precise calculations. Hyun's approach seemed too simple, too intuitive. It required feeling and instinct, not just knowledge, but slowly they began to understand. They learned to adjust treatments based on each patient's individual response. They learned to support healing instead of forcing it. They learned to trust the body's natural wisdom. The first child they saved together was a little girl named Yoonji. She had been sick for months. Using Hyun's methods, Jiwon treated her carefully. 3 days later, Yoonji's scales began to turn from gray to green. Her parents cried tears of joy. Then another child recovered. Then another. Then 10 more. Then 50 word spread across the planet. The human doctor was performing miracles. Hope began to replace despair. Parents who had given up started to believe again. But Hyun knew this was not just his victory. This was about teaching others. About sharing knowledge. About proving that no species had all the answers and that working together made everyone stronger. The galaxy was watching, and everything was changing. 6 months had passed since Hyun arrived on the Draken homeworld. The hospital that had been full of dying children was now full of recovering ones. Laughter and playful roars echoed through the halls where silence and sadness had ruled before. Over 3,000 young Draken had been saved using the methods Hyun taught, but the work was far from finished. Hyun stood in a large teaching hall. In front of him sat 200 Draken doctors. They had come from all across the Empire to learn. Behind them were doctors from other species too. The Quellan wanted to learn about human adaptive medicine. The Mektar were interested in biological intuition. Even the proud Zenith, a species known for their advanced genetics, had sent representatives. The key is balance, Hyun explained. He projected images on a screen showing cellular structures. Modern galactic medicine tries to control every aspect of treatment, but biology is not about control, it is about harmony. When you work with the body's natural processes instead of against them, healing happens faster and stronger. A Mektar doctor raised his metal hand. But this approach is imprecise. How can you create reliable treatments without exact measurements and calculations? Hyun smiled. He had heard this question many times. You still use measurements. You still need knowledge. But you also need to adapt. Every patient is different. Every body responds differently. You have to pay attention and adjust. An older Draken doctor named Kangmin stood up. I have practiced medicine for 90 years, he said. I was taught that emotions and intuition have no place in science. But watching you work, I see something different. You care about your patients. That caring makes you notice small details that machines might miss. Exactly, Hyun said. Technology is wonderful, but it is a tool, not a replacement for understanding. After the lecture, Ji-won approached him. She had become his closest colleague on the Draken homeworld. There is news, she said. The Velnir want to meet with you. Hyun felt his stomach tighten. The Velnir were a crystalline species that lived on asteroids. They were suffering from a disease similar to crimson blight. Their children were dying too. When? He asked. Tomorrow. Their ambassador is already traveling here. The next day, Hyun met with Ambassador Crystals in formation. The Velnir was a beautiful being made of living crystal. Light reflected through their body in rainbow patterns, but their inner light was dim, showing sadness. My people are desperate, the ambassador said. Their voice sounded like wind chimes. We have 17 colony asteroids. On each one, our young are dying from shard sickness. It breaks their crystal matrix. They shatter from the inside. Hyun listened carefully. Can you show me medical data? The ambassador provided files. Hyun studied them for hours. The disease was different from crimson blight, but the pattern was similar. It attacked the body's structure at a fundamental level. Advanced medicine had failed because it tried to force repair. The crystal bodies rejected the treatments and broke faster. I think I can help, Hyun said. But I need to understand your biology better. Would you let me visit one of your colonies? Within a week, Hyun traveled to a Velnir asteroid colony. Velkir and Daishim came with him. The little dragon, now much bigger, never left Hyun's side. Their bond had become legendary across the galaxy. The Velnir colony was stunning. Crystal structures grew everywhere, refracting starlight into colors Hyun had never seen. But in the medical centers, young Velnir lay on beds made of soft light. Their bodies had cracks spreading through them. Some were missing pieces that had already shattered. Hyun worked with Velnir doctors to develop a treatment. He used the same principles that had worked for Crimson Blight. Support, not force. Harmony, not control. They created a solution using minerals from the Velnir's home asteroids, combined with human biocompatible compounds that helped cellular repair. The first young Velnir they treated was named Gemstone at Dawn. He was only 3 years old in human terms. His body was so cracked that his parents had been preparing for his death. But after 5 days of treatment, the cracks began to seal. His inner light grew brighter. Within 2 weeks, he was completely healed. The success with the Velnir created a wave of change across the galaxy. Suddenly, species that had suffered from incurable diseases for generations had hope. Hyun's methods worked on many different forms of life. The key was always the same: work with nature, support healing, listen to what the body needs. Back on Earth, humanity's status transformed overnight. The Galactic Council had always seen humans as newcomers, barely worthy of notice. They had denied Earth a council seat multiple times, saying humans lacked the technology and wisdom for galactic leadership. But now everything changed. The Council sent an official delegation to Earth. They offered humanity a permanent seat. They wanted to learn from human medicine and philosophy. They wanted to establish medical exchange programs. Hyun watched the news from the Draken homeworld. He saw Earth's president, a woman named So-min, accept the council seat with dignity and grace. She spoke about cooperation and mutual respect. She said that advancement was not just about technology, but about wisdom and compassion. Hyun felt proud, but also humble. He had not set out to change the galaxy. He had just tried to save one dying child. That one act had rippled outward, touching billions of lives. Daishim had grown into a young adult dragon now. He was the size of a horse, with wings that could carry him through the sky. He was also special in another way. The hybrid antibodies in his system had given him abilities no other dragon possessed. He could survive in environments that would kill normal dragons. He was immune to hundreds of diseases. Scientists studied him constantly, amazed at what the combination of human and draken biology had created. One evening, Hyun sat on a balcony overlooking the Crystal City. The 2 suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Daishim landed beside him, folding his large wings. "You are quiet tonight," the young dragon said. Draken learned to speak around age 2. Daishim spoke perfect human languages in dragon tongue. "I am thinking," Hyun said. "When I saved you, I never imagined it would lead to all this." Daishim nuzzled against him gently. "You did not just save me. You saved thousands, maybe millions eventually, all because you cared enough to try when others gave up." Velkir joined them on the balcony. The old dragon had become one of Hyun's closest friends. "The Council of Elders wants to speak with you tomorrow," he said. "They have a proposal." The next day, Hyun stood before the Dragon Council in their grand chamber. The room was carved from a single massive crystal. Sunlight streamed through, creating patterns on the floor. Taekwon, the first of the council, spoke. "Hyun of Earth, you have given our species a gift beyond measure. You saved our children. You gave us hope. You taught us humility. Now we wish to honor you and your species." "You already have," Hyun said. "You welcomed me. You learned from me. That is honor enough." "No," Taekwon said. "It is not. We propose to build something new, a medical institute where all species can come to learn and share knowledge. It will be staffed by doctors from across the galaxy, but it will be based on human principles of adaptive medicine. We want you to lead it." Hyun felt overwhelmed. "That is too much responsibility for one person." "You will not be alone," Jiwon said. She stepped forward with Mirai beside her. "We will help you, and doctors from dozens of species have already volunteered." Hyun looked at the faces around him. Draken, humans, Velnir, Quellan, even Mektar. All different, all willing to work together. This was more than a medical institute. This was proof that the galaxy could unite around something positive. "I accept," Hyun said, "but only if we do this right. No species is better than another. Everyone has something to teach. Everyone has something to learn." Taekwon bowed deeply. "Agreed. This institute will be a symbol, a reminder that strength comes in many forms, that wisdom can be found anywhere, that sometimes the greatest power is simply the courage to care." Construction of the institute began immediately. It would be built on a neutral station, accessible to all species. The best teachers from across the galaxy would come to share their knowledge. Advanced technology would meet ancient wisdom. And at the center of it all would be the simple truth that Hyun had proven. Every life matters, and helping others makes everyone stronger. The galaxy was learning, and humanity, once dismissed as primitive and weak, was teaching them. 5 years had passed since Hyun had saved a dying dragon hatchling on Station Harmony. Now he stood at the entrance of the Galactic Institute of Adaptive Medicine, watching students from 20 different species enter for their first day of classes. The building was magnificent, a blend of technology and natural beauty that reflected the philosophy it taught. The institute had been completed 2 years ago, but it had taken time to develop the curriculum and recruit the right teachers. Now everything was ready. Doctors, scientists, and healers from across the galaxy had come to learn. Some were experienced professionals wanting to expand their knowledge. Others were young students starting their careers. All of them shared one thing. They believed in the power of working with nature instead of against it. Hyun walked through the main hall, greeting students. A young Quellan named Petal of Morning waved her flowery appendages excitedly. "Professor Hyun, I traveled 3 months to get here. My whole village sent me to learn from you." A Mektar student named Logic in Circuits approached. His robotic body was sleek and modern. "I was taught that biological medicine was inefficient. But after studying your published papers, I realized we had been missing something important. I want to understand how intuition and emotion can improve healing." Hyun smiled. "You will learn that here, and you will teach us too. Every species has unique knowledge. The key is sharing it." In the main auditorium, over 500 students gathered for the opening ceremony. Hyun stood on stage with other faculty members. Jiwon was there, now a professor of dragon biology. Mireille had joined them as head of human medicine studies. Blossom at Dawn taught plant-based healing. Eve and Forge of Light, the Mektar who had once been skeptical, now led the technology integration department. Hyun began his speech. "Welcome to the Galactic Institute of Adaptive Medicine. You come from different worlds, different cultures, different ways of thinking, but you all share the desire to heal, to help, to make life better. That is what connects us." He paused, looking at the diverse crowd. 5 years ago, I was just a researcher on a small station. I had no grand plans, no big dreams. Then a dying child was brought to me and I had to make a choice. Give up because the task seemed impossible, or try because it was the right thing to do. Daeshim sat in the front row, listening. He was fully grown now, a magnificent dragon with blue scales that shone like sapphires. He had become an instructor at the institute, teaching students about the hybrid immunity that had developed in his body. He was living proof that combining different approaches could create something stronger than either alone. "We live in a galaxy of incredible diversity," Hyun continued. "For too long, species competed to prove who was most advanced, who had the best technology, the strongest military, the smartest scientists. But we forgot something important. We forgot to work together. We forgot that different does not mean inferior." A human student named Hajun raised his hand. "Professor, how did humanity go from being dismissed as primitive to having a central role in galactic medicine?" "We did not change," Hyun said. "The galaxy's understanding changed. Humans were never primitive. We just had a different kind of knowledge. We learned to survive on a harsh world. So we developed medicine that adapts. We learned to work with nature because we had to. That knowledge was always valuable. Others just needed to recognize it." After the ceremony, Hyun met with department heads to review the semester plans. The institute was not just teaching human methods. It was creating a new approach that combined the best from all species. Mektar precision with human intuition, Quellan natural remedies with Draken bioengineering, Velnir crystal resonance with earth chemistry. That evening, Hyun visited the children's research wing. This was his favorite part of the institute. Here, doctors studied diseases that affected young beings across multiple species. Crimson blight had been completely eradicated now. 17 similar diseases had been cured using adapted versions of Hyun's original treatment. The work continued, finding solutions for conditions once thought hopeless. He found Velkir in one of the observation rooms. The old dragon spent much of his time at the institute now, serving as an ambassador and advisor. Together they watched young medical students practicing treatment techniques on simulated patients. "Do you ever think about that night? Valkyr asked. When you first saw Daishim dying? Every day, Hyun admitted. That moment changed my entire life. Changed the galaxy, really. You could have walked away, Valkyr said. Most beings would have. They would have said it was not their problem. Not their species. Not their concern. I almost did, Hyun confessed. I was afraid. I knew I might fail. But then I looked at him and I just saw a child who needed help. Nothing else mattered. Valkyr put a heavy claw on Hyun's shoulder. That is humanity's true strength. Not your medicine. Not your science. Your compassion. Your refusal to give up on others. That is what the galaxy needed to learn. Later that night, Hyun sat in his office reviewing reports. The Institute was treating patients from across the galaxy now. Success rates were higher than any hospital had achieved before. But more importantly, the philosophy was spreading. Medical schools on dozens of worlds were incorporating adaptive medicine into their teaching. The old belief that more complex always meant better was fading. A message appeared on his screen. It was from Earth. His mother, who still lived in Seoul, wanted to video chat. He accepted the call. Hyun, I saw you on the Galactic News, she said proudly. They called you a genius, he laughed. I am not a genius, Mother. I just remembered what grandmother taught us. Simple wisdom is sometimes the most powerful. She would be proud, his mother said softly. I wish she could have seen what you accomplished. I think she knows, Hyun said. Every time I treat a patient, I use her lessons. She lives on in the work. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. A delegation from the Zenith arrived. The Zenith were considered the most scientifically advanced species in the galaxy. They had genetic engineering so sophisticated they could redesign life itself. They rarely spoke to other species because they considered themselves superior. The lead Zenith, whose name translated to perfect in design, approached Hyun with what looked like humility. That alone was shocking. We have come to learn, Perfect in Design said. For 10,000 years we believed we had perfected medicine. We could cure anything, extend life indefinitely, enhance any trait. But we discovered a problem. Our people were becoming weaker. Each generation needed more intervention, more enhancement. We realized we had lost something your species still has. What is that? Hyun asked. Natural resilience, the ability to heal without constant technological support. We engineered away all our challenges, and in doing so, we engineered away our strength. This was a profound admission. The Zenith were acknowledging that humans, whom they had once dismissed as barely evolved, had wisdom they lacked. Hyun welcomed them to the Institute. You do not need to abandon your technology. You just need to balance it with natural processes. Let me show you. Over the following months, even the proud Zenith learned to appreciate human approaches. They discovered that combining their genetic mastery with human adaptive techniques created better outcomes than either method alone. The Institute became famous across the galaxy. Students who graduated from it were highly sought after. They brought new ideas to old medical systems. They challenged assumptions. They proved that cooperation produced better results than competition. Hyun was offered awards and honors from dozens of worlds. He turned most of them down. He did not want fame. He just wanted to continue the work. But he accepted one honor that meant everything to him. The Draken declared an annual holiday called Daishim Day, named after the hatchling whose survival had started everything. On this day, dragon families celebrated life, health, and the bonds that connect different species. It was a day to remember that helping others, even when it seems impossible, can change the world. On the 5th Daishim Day celebration, Hyun stood with his dragon friend on a balcony overlooking the Institute. Fireworks exploded in the sky, creating patterns of light and color. Students from dozens of species danced and celebrated together below. We did something good, Daishim said. His voice was deep now, the voice of an adult dragon, but still held the warmth of the child Hyun had saved. We did, Hyun agreed, but it is not finished. There are always more people to help, more diseases to cure, more lessons to learn. Good, Daishim said. I would be bored if we had solved everything. Hyun laughed. That was so like Daishim, always looking forward, always ready for the next challenge. He thought about the journey that had brought him here. From a simple researcher to a galactic leader in medicine, from being part of a dismissed species to representing humanity at the highest levels. It had not been about proving humans were superior. It had been about proving that every species had value, that working together made everyone stronger. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Advancement was not just about technology. It was not about who had the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons. True advancement came from wisdom, compassion, and the courage to help others even when success seemed impossible. Humans had taught the galaxy that sometimes the greatest strength was the simplest, caring enough to try.